So you want to make a clone of your plant, huh? Well, I'll walk you through the general process of air layering, which is one method of doing so, and then at the very end of the video, I'll briefly discuss the science. Now, aside from a plant, you're going to need tape, tinfoil, plastic bag, a cutting utensil, soil, and optionally, growth hormone. Now, before we get to girdling, we need to sterilize your cutting equipment, and the best way of doing that is mixing together a 1-part bleach to 9-part water solution, but I didn't have bleach, so instead I just used heat. When girdling, you want to make a small incision all the way around the branch and then scrape or peel off the first 3 layers of the plant. So here's a little cross-section of a loquat tree I'm working on, and the part you girdle should slide right off. It should be able to come off quite easily, and it's composed of 3 different layers, and these are 3 layers you make sure you want to cut through. So the first layer is obviously the bark, if you have a woody tree. The second layer is the phloem, which I'll discuss later on what its functionality is, and then the third layer is the vascular cambium. You want to make sure you cut through all 3 of these layers as you girdle. Then what you want to avoid cutting into the most inner part of your branch is going to be the hardwood and the sapwood, and we'll discuss why later. I use rooting hormone, and while it is unnecessary, it does increase the chance that your branch will take root, and it also acts as an antifungal agent, so it'll protect the open wound. I apply it pretty liberally. You really can't use too much of this stuff, so just glob it all on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a plastic bag filled with soil of your choice. Supposedly the best soil you could choose is peat moss, but I didn't have peat moss, so I used normal potting soil, which should work just as well. Then you surround your girdle with the dirt. You tape it off so that it'll stay up there. And then you'll cover it with aluminum foil or tin foil to simulate being underground. It'll block out the light. Now I'm just repeating the process on another branch. And as an aside, you can also make your own rooting hormone at home using honey, apple cider vinegar, saliva, cinnamon, aspirin, or aloe vera. And I'll leave the recipes in the description. So now I'm cutting into the top portion because you don't want this to be a closed system. You want water to still be able to get in and drain out. And I'll give it a little spritz of water right now just to give it a head start. And that's all there is to it. In optimal conditions, it'll only take about 72 hours for the roots to start to take, and in 1 to 3 months, you should have enough roots to be able to transplant this identical clone. So now we'll transition into the science and understand how and why this process works. We'll start with the general plant phytotomy, and we need to begin by understanding how translocation works. So translocation is the process by which carbohydrates, water, and nutrients move about the plant. Carbohydrates are produced via photosynthesis in the leaves, and in most plants, the roots absorb water and nutrients. To facilitate translocation of materials around a plant, there are specialized tissues consisting of continuous strands of specialized cells. These are the xylem and the phloem. The xylem carries water, nutrients, and hormones from the roots all the way up to the leaves, and the phloem carries carbohydrates and hormones from the leaves back down the tree all the way to the roots. The xylem consists of 2 parts, the older inactive heartwood and the sapwood, which is what actively transports water, nutrients, and hormones up. The phloem is the living layer just below the bark that carries the carbohydrates and hormones down from the leaves. Separating these 2 layers of tissues is the vascular cambium, which generates new layers of xylem in the interior of the tree, as well as generating new layers of phloem under the bark So this acts to repair the tree when there's damage. Now that we understand how materials are translocated around the plant, we can discuss the hormones that are the driving factors behind root development. These are auxin and cytokinins. Generally, auxin promotes growth and elongation of cells, triggers root generation when it is present in threshold concentrations, and suppresses bud development, whereas cytokinins, when combined with auxin, simulate cell division and differentiation. Cytokinins also regulate growth patterns and promote growth of lateral buds, while auxins suppress them. Conversely, cytokinin inhibit formation of lateral roots while auxin promote their formation. And it is this balance between cytokinin and auxins that determine whether a plant will favor root development, shoot development, or undifferentiated cells. With high concentrations of auxin and minimal cytokinin, the plant will favor root development. And in the reverse scenario, where there is a lot of cytokinin and few auxin, then the plant will favor shoot development. So for air layering to work, we need the upper portion of the branch to create roots while maintaining its vitality. And as we just discovered, the way that we encourage root production is by increasing the ratio of auxin to cytokinin. And since cytokinins are transported via the xylem in the sapwood, and we need to maintain the sapwood to allow water and nutrients to flow to the upper portion of the branch, we instead have to find a way to increase the level of auxin. By girdling the tree and cutting through the phloem, we interrupt the flow of auxin from the leaves back down to the roots. And so auxin will very quickly start to build up at the girdle location. And as I had previously mentioned, with optimal conditions, in under 72 hours, the auxin to cytokinin ratio will strongly favor auxin and signal root development. When girdling, it is also essential to scrape up the vascular cambium because even if a small amount remains, it will bridge the gap between the wound and slowly begin to heal. As the upper portion of the girdle begins to root, the lower portion will have lost auxin concentration, and thus the ratio between auxin and cytokinin will begin to favor cytokinin, which will signal the tree to produce lateral shoots and bud development, and produce a bushier, less leggy tree. After about 1 to 3 months, there should be enough root development to transplant that branch. Make sure to cut it above the new bud developments. And there you have it. There's the quick how-to and the science behind air layering.